Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to the Cowell class, or the Cowell, the Fletcher class destroyer. So as we get ourselves into position here with our beautiful boat of destruction, let's talk a bit about War Thunder and where naval forces is headed. I know this has been a subject I've talked about a lot lately, but this is just a great match to give an example of what's going on and, well, the ups and downs of the current meta, and also just let's enjoy the sheer amount of firepower and presence that a destroyer brings to the battlefield. And now the Fletcher, or the Cowell specifically, is a Fletcher that just gets a few more 40mm guns and that golden name tag that makes so much more of a difference. God bless America. So we are currently positioning ourselves, as I mentioned. If you look at the map, we're moving into the area that contains the two main capture points, and you see that the C point over there is intended to be this target for the larger craft, but the way things actually work out is the battle is almost entirely carried out at the A and B points, and then the C point gets ignored by anyone who wants to get a decent score in the game. Let me get my mouse off screen for you. So that's just the way things are right now. The way things are. Pork is a nice white meat. So let's go ahead and speed things up a bit until we get into the area of operations. Just the sheer amount of firepower you see coming off of our craft here, and already at 5 minutes into the game, we're locking down the A and the B point from a range of about 3 kilometers from the main action. That puts us outside the range of most of the guns of those light craft, and you see that we're also squaring off against our real threat here, enemy destroyers who have decided to utilize the same strategy as us. I get the feeling that any of the experienced players of naval end up doing this eventually. There's just nothing going on out on the high seas, and that's something that I would really like to see change, but that's the way things are right now. You see currently we're using high explosive rounds to try and get some just broadcast damage on this German destroyer we're facing off against. I think that is one of the German ones. Hard to tell from this range. Ooh, speaking of range, now we launch the rest of our torpedoes and we zoom in. Here is a real threat to us, so we switch to armor piercing, and after a few hits with our high explosive, I guess we haven't switched to AP yet. Boom! Nice strike midship, dealing some critical damage, and then a single volley of APHE hits his magazine and deals absolutely critical damage to his vessel. Surprisingly, did not one-shot him, as commonly happens when you hit with that AP, but that's going to cripple his forward guns. That's going to really hamper his crew level. That did some absolutely serious damage to him. Another lucky hit there just at the end takes down his transmission, which is also going to seriously hinder him. A quick burst with the 40s takes down our first craft of the game, and that light vessel just gets totally destroyed. We already have an aircraft kill. One thing that I should mention, let's talk tactics. So you might have noticed that I'm directly controlling the 40mm Bofors mounts. That's just something that I prefer to do when I'm up against light craft inside of 4 kilometers. You can see that they're about 2,400 meters out right now. We have high explosive radar fuse rounds loaded up for the main guns, and the replay is not accurately showing where we're aiming there. You see we were actually right on with our 40s, and we just shredded that poor crabbing boat, the weaponized fishing boat that we faced there. Not able to get a target on that PT. I guess he was already dead. And then what is that there on the horizon? Hard to tell. It looks like an Elco boat though. and it's being just shredded by the 40s as you do. So we're already up to 2 surface vessels down, both of them lighter craft, although we did get some serious damage on that enemy destroyer. And 1 aircraft, so someone spawned in a plane already and then quickly got taken down. At these higher battle ratings, it's really not advantageous to spawn in an aircraft. There's not a whole lot you can do against Radar Fuse AA, which you can see me utilizing heavily here. That was a serious threat, that enemy S-boat, and unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to close to a range where his torpedoes could be effective. You can see that if we take a look at the water here, you can manually spot enemy torpedoes from a long way off. So we have like a full minute to become aware of the presence of that torpedo. And look at the detail on this one. You can see it swimming through the water, a dangerous little murder fish headed for the general direction of our destroyer. And now you see we're facing off against another enemy destroyer. We use the AP to ammo rack him, and he does not survive the process. He gets taken down. In fact, I think we might have actually hit him with a torpedo. Another thing to note here, look for enemy torpedoes. You can manually spot them long before the little indicator tells you there's a torp in the water. So use that to your advantage. You can catch people off guard with a spread of torpedoes, but if you are looking around and spotting those enemy torps, you'll be able to position yourself to get away from them, and that's exactly what we're doing now. We're sort of nestled here, as you see, in our little nook, and there's some low clearance as there's that rock face in front of us, so we're not able to use our main guns against ships within a certain range. And that is another thing to talk about with naval forces. When you don't have a firing angle with your main guns, it could be advantageous, as we see us doing now, to switch to the secondaries and try and get some shots over the obstacle. The 40mm Bofors are plunging down almost vertically at 3 to 4 kilometers. Inside of that, they start to be more flat, and then of course your main guns out at the range of 5 to 6 kilometers are starting to drop quite a bit, but inside of 2 kilometers they fire a lot more flat. What do you get out of that? Well, if you don't have a shot on somebody because of some obstacle, it might behoove you to switch to a different type of weapon. And with the Cowell in particular, it's very deadly with those 40s. You can disable a lot of things on an enemy destroyer, and you can outright shred lighter craft, as you see. It does not take long for a full spread of 40mm gunfire raking across the enemy deck to wipe out most of their offensive modules. So keep that in mind. We're up to 7 kills here, mostly light craft, but again, we're encountering more enemy destroyers in this area than we would if we went for the sea point. If you look at the map right now, we have 3 allies in the area of sea, and as far as I can tell, no enemies left in that area. So the people that decided to sail all the way out there, there's really nothing for them to engage at this point, and that's just unfortunately the way things are. So what can we take away from this match in particular? You saw us get, I think we actually got 2 kills during this match from long-range torpedo spreads. So use that to your advantage. Fire your torpedoes early or fire them at the last second. That is the way. And here we are trying to get some shots on that S-boat, but he's already taken down. The vast majority of our kills have been using the 40mm Bofors to engage enemy light craft. And yeah, it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. But look at that lucky shot he got on us. That was a good one. This is the we're facing off against the Soviet Project 183, I think it's called. It's the riverboat with the two 85mm quick firing guns, and you see that even though the 40mm don't do a ton of damage, just by sheer volume of fire, we're able to just shred the central portions of his craft. We switch to high explosive here in the main guns and give him a few shots to try and finish him off. He's a tough beastie, and he did some serious damage to us. If you use armor piercing with that specific Russian boat, you can deal a good amount of damage, but eventually we wipe out the last of his crew. We got a good hit on his frontal turret there. Not sure if that was an ammo rack, but we took some serious hits. Thankfully for us, the Fletcher class with a well-trained crew is very quick to put out fires and deal with damage. You see we're leaking oil into the water, but this is America. It's what we do. Excuse me. So, more tactics to talk about here as we just open up with all the guns. When it comes to selecting which weapon group to use, I'm a big fan of bringing a lot of proximity fuse or delay fuse high explosive, and then a small amount of armor piercing. The armor piercing is very effective against enemy destroyers, and the high explosive is good against everything else. The radar fuse is sort of it's more useful in realistic battles to load it up in your main guns and then switch to the secondaries and let your auto gunners shoot down enemy aircraft. You can see we picked up 2 aircraft kills already, and I'll have matches where the enemy is just spawning in aircraft all over the place, and the Fletcher class in particular right now, having just received some adjustments to the efficiency of radar fuse AA, is incredibly good at taking down enemy aircraft with those proximity fuse rounds. Here you see us opening up on that PT boat, and there's really not anything he can do. The only thing he could attempt is to launch some torpedoes at us, but again, he's at a range where that's not going to be very effective for him. An alternative strategy, when you're up against a destroyer stuck in my position like this, what you need to do is use cover and not fly or not sail directly in front of somebody. So many times I see the enemy just coming right for us, and now of course I'm sailing right through their spawn points, so there's not a whole lot of places for them to be, but we've gotten the majority of our kills, as you noticed, by being at medium range, outside the effective range of those light crafts, guns, or torpedoes. We've kept an eye out for enemy torps and had plenty of time to reposition ourselves in order to not take a hit from a torpedo, and even more, the enemy just didn't move around the back side of the map. Now this is one of the worst naval maps. You don't have a ton of options to be able to sneak up on an enemy destroyer, so this has just been a turkey shoot. But the takeaway from this one, when you're switching weapons, it takes a while for your guns to re-aim, so you need to plan ahead of time which weaponry you're going to use. The secondary guns, the anti-aircraft guns on a larger vessel, can be very effective against lighter craft, as you saw. AP is more deadly than high explosive when you're hitting where you're aiming. So for taking out enemy ammo racks, AP is still the way to go, and high explosive is somewhat useful when you need to broadcast damage over a larger area. Generally, I still favor AP for taking down larger vessels, especially in the Fletcher, since it has a good fire rate. So you can get that one shot into an ammo rack that it takes to deal critical damage to an enemy destroyer. Right now, ammo racking an enemy big boat does not necessarily blow them up, but it definitely hampers their ability to fight. Proximity or delayed fuse high explosive is very effective against enemy aircraft. I can show you. Let's see some other battles where we did a little bit better. There's 3 air kills, not bad. You can see some of these matches we didn't do all that well, but other times, mostly when we were much more aggressive into pushing into those 2 central capture points. Okay, that's getting out of the naval vessels. I promise, maybe it was yesterday. We got like 6 air kills in one battle. It was ridiculous, and all you do is switch to the secondaries and let the main guns do their work against enemy aircraft. So that's the way naval is looking right now for the larger vessels. Once I get into the light cruisers, I'll be able to tell you more about how that works. But you see, we're working our way down the destroyer line, and there's really no reason to bring anything other than my premium Cowell out, because it is the pinnacle of destroyer technology at this point in the game. The Sumner is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you guys. But to wrap things up quickly, use your torpedoes at long range. I like to set them up to where they can travel further. If you look at modifications, some of your vehicles have this torpedo mode, and here when you check the box, it adds extra range and takes away some of the speed, but in the end the torpedoes are still going at a decent 30 miles per hour. That's enough to catch an enemy in a broadside, but it's more like a mobile minefield than anything else. If you are going to use your torpedoes at close range or save them for that, you need to be in like shotgun distance, and honestly your guns are probably going to be more effective at that range anyway if you're doing right, if you're using that armor piercing and going for the enemy ammo racks. At longer ranges you can go for their engine. If you take down any of this central part of the ship, you have a really good chance of setting fires, and also you see how much room the engines take up. They're a huge target, and once you take down that powertrain, they're severely limited in their options. A sitting duck is a dead boy in this game, so keep that in mind yourself. Position yourself where the enemy is. At this point, there's no point in being anywhere other than those central 2 capture points. Keep an eye out for enemy torpedoes. Engage light craft at the longest ranges possible. Secondaries are useful between 2 and 3 kilometers distance and even shorter, and then your main guns are more effective at longer ranges. But at those medium ranges, you're going to be seeing people in the central portion of the map. It's more useful for me to have quick response firepower, and the 40 millimeters do enough damage to suppress multiple enemies. And I also like using them because the main guns don't overheat, so the auto gunners, being the numbskulls they are, can just fire all day, and you're not going to run out of ammo. Just have them using high explosive. And also, I didn't mention that if you go into controls, this is another key thing that I've been doing lately. Manual targeting of the primary caliber I have set to Control D, and also to select that gun set I have Shift D. So if I target an enemy aircraft and I hit Control D, it'll tell my main guns to fire at that target specifically. And that's useful because each gun type has a different range at which they engage the enemy. The primary guns engage out to around 6 kilometers, I think, for these guns, which is plenty good for the radar fuse high explosive. I've picked up kills out to around 4 to 6 kilometers with a reasonable amount of frequency. And of course, in an aircraft, your weaponry is only really effective inside of 2 kilometers for the most part. Even bombs is difficult to hit if you're at a range of 5 or 6 kilometers. So the Fletcher class has a serious advantage against aircraft at that point. And looking into the future of the game, as more vehicles are added, I really feel that the Fletcher class, including the Cowell, and probably the Sumner as well, are going to be very effective still because of their anti-aircraft power. They have a high fire rate, they have reasonable accuracy, and they have the best anti-aircraft round in the game at this point, and I think it's only going to get better. It got a serious nerf early on because it was sort of a kill everything round, because it would trigger against light craft, which is realistic, and it would just shotgun them from above. It was awesome. I'd really love to see that effect come back because you could just absolutely wreck everything that didn't have a significant amount of armor, and I'd love to see those puffs of the high explosive triggering above the enemy vessel. That was just super cool. But I understand that they took that effect away for game balance reasons. As the power curve progresses, I feel that the Fletcher class is only going to get stronger because it's been held back to keep it in line with the other destroyers that are in the game. So suffice to say, this is probably one of the most future-proof vessels in the game. Anyway, guys, that's been another look at the Fletcher class, the Cowell specifically. It's a great premium. I've had an absolute blast playing this one. AP against larger ships, awesome. Aim for those ammo racks. Torpedoes for days. The range on these things is incredible, and you get 10 of them. And the guns are just really, really strong. Play it in test sale. Figure out what the aiming style is for each type, and have an absolute blast. Anyway, I've said enough, and thanks for sticking around this long. I'll catch you in the next video, and I will continue to keep following the progress of naval forces. It has been by far the most exciting and rewarding game mode for me to play lately. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Baby shark, baby shark, baby shark, baby shark, mommy shark, mommy shark, mommy shark, mommy shark, daddy shark, daddy shark. Come on. Grandma shark, grandma shark, grandma shark, grandma shark, grandma shark, grandpa shark, grandpa shark, grandpa shark. Let's go hunt. Let's go hunt. Run away.